The show is made possible in part by its supporting sponsors: Blue Water Power Group of Companies, Joe's Discount Tire, and AskGuy.ca. All right, he started it already. All right, we're going to go with that. And welcome everybody once again. This week's one-on-one with my longtime friend, Sean Robbins. Thanks so much for being here, buddy. We don't get to hang out as much as I think we'd probably like to. Well, so are you, right? So
I'm a little bit busy.
pretty impressed that I actually you had the time for me today to do this, because you're busy.
It is busy, and you're supposed to. They say when you get close to retirement, you're supposed to slow down. I don't know when we had time to work.
Right? Everybody I talk to says the same thing. They're like, I'm busier now. My wife's telling me more what to do than she did before. And we're going to get to what you guys are doing right now, but I always like to say, let's go back as far as you can remember to the beginning of Sean Robbins. Maybe I'll ask that question. Do you have your first memory?
First memory?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, sort of. I grew up downtown with a single mom.
Yeah.
My parents were only together a year, and this is 68, so 69, she was by herself, and downtown was a different place, wasn't it?
It was.
I mean, this is pre-Kenwick building, so we're talking...
The boat.
73, 74, 75. We lived on Vital Street.
Yeah.
The fast part of Vital Street where cars go fast, right?
Great place to raise a kid.
I went to Our Lady of Mercy School. It's not even a school anymore.
Oh, wow. Right,
So, I remember a lot of downtown and the buses and Seaway days. We took them out. My single mom, we took the bus everywhere. But remember when the buses used to park downtown?
Yep.
So it was really, it was alive. It was alive.
Eaton Center.
Yeah. You know, where the Bad Dog is now on that corner, that was also a diner. One of my earliest memories is like the diner. One of my aunts who babysat me a lot was a bartender at the Sarnia Hotel.
I was going to say, I remember the Sarnia Hotel.
And she would, and sometimes, and you think about this stuff, of course, the times have changed so much. If she had to work, she'd sit me at a booth. All the old timers were at the bar, and she'd give me a plate of French fries. So it's memories like that. There's a picture of me on that City Hall fountain at 2 years old.
Oh wow!
So downtown seemed to be, that's where we were, right? So
it was Sarnia.
That was Sarnia.
Really,
there was no Lambton Mall, So I mean, everything was focused down there, and there was. And as I pass by those shops, you must think that it's almost like ghosts to me. Like that used to be here. We can step way back, way back. So. And then you go through. Then I moved to the Tree Streets into my when I was about 10 or 11 years old. Went to Queen Elizabeth School, and my grandparents lived in the Tree Streets, and I stayed in the Tree Streets.
Did you have
forever.
fun as a kid?
I did. You know what? We're that generation of road hockey nonstop. Rode my bikes.
Game on.
Germain Park was my.
I bet you Germain Park got used a lot more.
Oh. We had a thing called the Adventure Park. Do you ever remember that?
Oh, no.
So right outside where the arena was, now I remember when the arena was built.
Yeah.
Germain Park, now it's gone. And they used to have a thing called the Adventure Park where it was surrounded by walls, wooden walls in the middle of the park, and you would walk in and it was full of wood and lumber, and you could check out, this is little guys.
Right.
Think about this today. We check out a saw, a hammer, and nails, and you built forts. That's what you did all day. It was run by the city.
They wouldn't let you take out a file now.
Could you imagine the insurance?
No
we
way.
would build forts 10 stories tall in there and using...
Do you think that's, I know where you're talking, I think everybody watching knows what you're talking about, but do you think that was a mistake? Like, do you think we've lost something because we don't let people... Like, I remember going out back in my dad's garage there out in the Golden Mile, and was building a fort in a tree, and I put a little hatchet into my foot.
Sure.
I'm still here. Yeah. I mean, I don't recommend it.
Well, geez, how many...
but I missed.
How many knees on your BMX bike?
Right.
And how many... I mean, I remember one summer having I broke 2 wrists. I had the cast on 2 wrists. Outside is gone.
Yeah.
I have grandchildren now, 5 of them.
It's our own fault, though, isn't it? Kind of.
Well, technology really gets into that. I mean, it's our own fault, but how do you... We used to say, well, I won't give... 10 years ago, we're saying, my kid won't get a phone. I drop off my grandchildren at school, and she's my granddaughter, my oldest one, is 10, and all of her friends have a phone.
They're born with it.
They're born with a phone. And I mean, in early days, it became a great babysitter, right, for parents. And we're
like the television. I think we've all been guilty of that one. Just sit there and watch that while you're trying to do something.
And there was the days that how many times on a Saturday did your mom kick you out and say, get outside?
When Saturday morning cartoons are over, then I'll go outside.
I think that maybe that's a little bit of it. I was telling somebody that's not from Sarnia that, we grew up on Detroit. We're very lucky. So if you grew up in Kitchener or London, you only got CK Kitchener Television.
We had Sonny Elliott.
We had Sonny Elliott, Bill Bonds, Diana Lewis.
Oh yeah, right, yeah.
And we also had WRIF.
Right.
We had roller skating.
Baby.
I was a I lived at skate country. I'm sure
Big
you
time.
did too.
We were probably there.
Oh yeah, the all-night skate, sleeping under pinball machines.
Yep.
Things that I mean, those things slipped away, and they're gone, and they really weren't replaced. I now drive home, and how we can get to the next part of my life, which was the band days, which were getting home at 2 or 3 in the morning for about 25 years.
Yeah.
And I come home now from a band or DJing mostly and come home and the streets are empty.
Oh yeah.
If you passed by the Lazy Duck at 1:30 in the morning 10 years ago, you had to stop for traffic.
Right.
Pedestrian traffic,
that's
right? Now it's
going from Fatmost to the Duck and back.
Yeah, I mean, our world, we're not that old, in our 50s.
No.
It changed so fast and so
I
quickly.
felt like it changed overnight.
Yeah,
and I say overnight, I know it was a few years, but
it was a huge change.
It was drastic, I guess,
Yeah.
for what we were used to. Well, let's go back before we get too further ahead. Like high school, like you went Tree Streets.
Tree Streets, and I went to St. Clair. So I was
St.
supposed
Clair.
to go to Central. So in grade 8, they send you for orientation at sort of near the end of your grade 8 year to go tour your high school,
right?
Get you acclimated.
Yeah.
And I went to Central, and of course I'm in the Tree Streets. That's just right
like,
there. It was
right
fantastic.
there. This is awesome.
And my parents went to Central, so I was really excited about it. Well, before that summer ended, they closed Central, said it was sinking into the ground.
How bummed out were you?
Funny enough, St. Pat's lasted another 25 years without it sinking into the ground.
Right.
And it's like, so I ended up going to St. Clair. Well, now that was a 20-minute walk, and we did it. We walked in those days. I walked 20 minutes.
How old are you now?
I'm 54.
50. So yeah, I'll be 54. So we were there at St. Clair both.
I
was a year behind because I failed a grade. But
well, a neat thing happened.
We were there.
My parents were, as I told you, they separated when I was very young. So I did grade 9 at St. Clair. Had a great time, lots of friends. I ended up going to Toronto, where my dad lived, for grade 10. Which was the most scary experience of my life because I didn't know anybody. When you go from grade 8 to grade 9, you know everybody. You got friends already, and then you make new friends.
Yeah.
Well, I showed up, and this high school was 40 minutes away from where my dad lived, and I didn't meet anybody that summer, and it had 4,000 kids, 2 swimming pools, and they weren't on the semester system. So I had come from 4 classes a day back to 8 classes a day where you're running down the hall to try and get to your class. You literally couldn't go to your locker. You carried all the books.
Wow.
And that would have
sucked.
But you know what? I ended up making some great friends. And this is 84. There's punk rockers with those big punk.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't even know what I wanted to be.
Everybody
This
had
was
those
my
in their
experimentation
school.
time.
I had friends like that.
I showed up as a preppy with deck shoes on and Roots and Polo and Lacoste, trying to be that guy by the end of it. Then I sort of went to the rocker thing. And of course, Toronto, these kids, when they were a rocker, it wasn't like Sarnia. They had the spiked wristbands. And there was all these little groups, mods, punkers, and it was a great year of my life. I ended up playing football. Something weird happened. A lot of people don't know this story. So I went to a high school called Northern, and they were the Northern Red Knights, very close to the Northern Vikings logo. Okay, so I didn't know anybody. I joined the junior football team. Well, I had seen the football team at St. Clair. They gave you the 1964 egg helmet that your dad used.
Right, probably.
Toronto was a different experience. They had a beautiful football field out back. When they let the kids go out to the game or day off for the game, everybody went. We had our own bus. We had our own change rooms, and brand new bike and Riddell helmets. You were the kings. Yeah. And that saved my day. Sports saved my day because I met all those guys. And had a great time. Well, didn't we win the championship of Toronto? That's a big deal in Toronto. And you play the championship game in the CNE Stadium. So that's where I played. Then you qualify to play that St. Pat's Bowl. Do you remember for years that a team from Toronto would always play St. Pat's?
No, I don't.
And I'm probably the only guy in Sarnia.
I was the water boy. I didn't.
Well, so we every year. I don't know if they still do it, but for years it was like a Toronto. Whoever won Toronto played against St. Pat's. Not sure how they got the deal. Well, don't we play St. Pat's? 1984, and a guy from Sarnia. I've only been gone a year from Sarnia. Is playing for the Toronto team, and we win.
That's pretty awesome.
So I come back, and I happen to. I used to change high schools depending on who I met that summer.
Right.
So I decided to go back to Northern for grade 11 because I was dating somebody there. And I've got a Northern Red Knights championship jacket. Well, that thing was worth gold because it was like, it was the same logo called Northern. It was red, but it wasn't their jacket.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was the Toronto experience was cool, scary. big city, but I felt safe in Toronto at 4 in the. I felt safer then walking downtown Yonge Street than you would today. All those arcades, Sam the Record Man was there, Ontario Place. The Argonauts won, and it was crazy.
That's cool.
So I got the '80s experience.
You got a really cool experience that many who would not.
I often forget that happened to me, and I think that was really neat to learn.
Sean Robbins is really creative. You know, like you're. I mean, I've known you a long time. You know, probably our relationship at the beginning was kind of from afar. We knew who each other was, but didn't really interact.
Sarnia.
Right? But then over time, we came to interact with each other, you know. And so, I mean, I knew you from Whiskey Rain.
River first.
Or Whiskey River, sorry, and Whiskey Rain. And
do you know what Whiskey River's first name was?
I remember you telling me, no.
Sinful Hush.
Sinful Hush.
Didn't sound too country, so we changed. People kept going, was that toilet flush? You know, it didn't work.
It's like that song. What do they say? What's it? Blinded by the light, whatever.
Yeah. Wrapped up. Yeah.
And you said to me one time, I've never ever forgotten this, and it was Whiskey River at the time. And I said, "How do you do it?" And you said, "You know what? We are not the best band in the area, and I am not the best singer, but we're booked every weekend."
Yeah, we were solid. Yeah.
I never forgot that you said that, because that was kind of an aha moment for me where I went, wonder why. And your marketing skills are just over the top. Would you?
Yeah, I think I often get put into that category. You're great marketing. I think it's really just passion for pushing what I love. I watch you and your program, what you've done over the years, and it's not a band, it's Dave. You're a brand to yourself.
Yeah.
And you created that brand. I think you can market something when you love it. When it's
true, yeah.
You know, like I looked at New Country, so now you're bounced ahead to the 90s. I got married in '89, so I've been married 34 years, just in May passed by. And God bless her, she's put up with a lot, as you all know. And
been there for some of it.
We were all classic rockers. We come from St. Clair. You're classic rock.
That's
Zeppelin,
right.
all that stuff, right? We might have had a little bit of when Prince Purple Rain came out.
we
That
had
was cool. U2. We had a little bit of the pop.
Iron Maiden, all that stuff.
And then out pops this New Country, and it had 50 million new listeners. I did not like country. Funny story of how Whiskey River's name came was, in Prohibition, they used to dump so much liquor into the river here that my grandfather, rest his soul, named the band because he said it was called the Whiskey River. And he was a huge country fan, but old country. Okay, he took me to the Sarnia Arena. I think we saw Slim Whitman and we saw Little Jimmy Dickens, and I just did not like country. My stepfather, that my mom ended up, was a drummer. So my mom eventually, when I went to the Tree Streets, remarried again to a great guy, Ronnie Hinton, and he was a drummer. And he got me on the drums. I'm actually a drummer by trade. That's where I started young. And he was also a DJ. So on Reel to Reel. Remember 12 hours worth of music? Yeah. So I learned all this music. So I was a young guy showing up to trying to put a band together. And I struggled to put a band together. My grandfather's, I got into this country. Well, that was New Country. You know, the Garths, the Shanias, all that stuff. And it sounded like classic rock, right? Yeah. So that's when the Dusty Rose is just peaking. I remember going out there and saying, geez, I really want to try my band. I'll give you. And Terry Glover said, nah, you guys will never be nothing. I was the drummer for the Foggy Mountain Band with Joan Spalding at the Bridge Tavern. And I wanted,
she's great.
I wanted to try this Whiskey River thing in the New Country. And you're only as good as the people around you.
100%.
And at the time,
hard lesson to learn sometimes, but over time.
We spend time with people we shouldn't have. Right. And then there's the Garth Brooks were doing these big light shows, and I kept saying, if when people come to a nightclub, and nightclubs were alive then, why can't they want to see what they were seeing on the CMT videos? Right. And that's what was hot, right? So we'd spend 12 hours. You remember, I had a 25-foot truck with all those lights and stuff.
I remember going, what are you doing?
Yeah, we weren't getting paid.
Put the lights
We're making nothing, right? The band the week before would have nothing, and we built this monster where we had all these lights and smoke machines, and Molson sponsored us.
It was the experience, though, right?
It was the whole night. We could sing the songs like everybody else and do them, but we gave you a little bit more. Yeah. I always said, I'm not a great singer, I'm an entertainer. And if you're singing the right stuff, you'll be fine.
That's right.
And then we had people like Christine Story join, and Dave and Denise, a lot of talented people around us, Dave Cook, and they just made me better. I was never going to ever be Sean Robbins in a band. It's just the band. and let's have a performance.
You know, it's funny you say I say that with this thing, right? You know, like I'm not a sports guy, but I'm an interviewer, and I put somebody smarter than me beside me, and I look great. You know, that's kind of the idea, right?
My first gig was at the Eagles Club the day that grandfather was buried. I had to play matinee with a meat raffle. In between, they spin the wheel in between songs, and then we played at night. And I wish he would have been there to see, because I became a country band. Remember, I said I'm never going to be in a country band, and he wanted me to, and so it just sort of took off from there. And I put so much work and passion. I don't want to say I wasted it, because it was a great time.
Well, it's part of who you are now.
It's part of who you are, and it certainly is. You know, we skip ahead. I've been a salesperson my whole life.
You just read my mind. I was like, you've sold cars.
18 years selling cars.
Right, you know.
Started at Radio Shack.
Right.
But I
remember that.
But that's entertaining. You know, being a salesperson is just being an entertainer, educated on the product, right? And did you always?
Okay, so you've done sales. You're the entertainer. You're a musician. You're a lot of things, right?
So many hats my hair wore off.
Yeah. So, where at what point, or was there ever, or are you still looking for the point of, what am I going to do for my life, or what's my career?
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. The last 15 years, I've been a district manager with Cogeco.
Been that long already? Eh?
Yeah.
Wow.
And that is my life. I mean, if I hope to retire with them, because they're an awesome company, and they take good care of me, and I look after a territory from here to Chatham, and it fits my life super well. And you know, now we're empty nesters. We've got 5 grandkids. Yeah. And it's funny, they call them boomerang kids. You know, the pandemic, I had a daughter move back in with 2 grandkids, so I've been dad for a while, which has been awesome. Yeah. They're just leaving. But
you've gone a lot of different directions all your life. So did you?
Don't sit still, right? I don't think you and I are. That's why we're friends, because we just, even if you said, Sean, here's a giant bag of money and you could retire, I got to go do something.
Yeah, that's kind
you know, life. I had 3 parents die at 62 years old.
Wow.
So when you're 54, I just live like there's no tomorrow. Was it a Tim McGraw song?
Live
or
like
something?
you were dying, right?
Yeah, live like you're dying. And
we say that though, but so many of us really don't. Like we say that, but it's like, well, yeah, but I got to do this and I got to do that. How did you decide that you were able to? Because you really do, I believe, you live like this is your last day, right? Yeah. How do you get to that point where you decide you really can do that?
Well, it's having your mom at 62 who was young and vibrant, and she was my buddy. You know, these are like our parents, and you've been through this stuff. I mean, it's not like they weren't old people to me. You know, like my mom we went to the Dominican together and drink. She went with my wife, and then and it's funny because on their deathbeds, they never worried about bills. They never worried about you know, being there. My mom was single at the end, about being in love. All the worries she had, the only worry she had was she took 9 months to pass away in Blue Water Health, and was, are you coming up tomorrow? You know, you're going up there every day, and all of those times, my life has been massively interrupted. I had a stepfather die during the pandemic. Hector, of assisted suicide he had to take because he was in hospice. It took a long time for him to pass, and you know, here's my line. Here's the line. Dying's a bad day. Right. Everything else is just an inconvenience.
Wow. Yeah.
That's the ultimate bad day. And unfortunately, you know, I've had them die in my hands, and I don't even take it as a sorrow or sadness. Like, my parents lived. They were 70s, 60s creatures. They were wearing the bell bottoms and probably smoking stuff and drinking. And my mom traveled to Dominican 10, 12 times a year. Wow. Had a house there. She lived, you know, so I think that's the message was we even at 62
that's where it came
they
from
lived.
For you. Where'd your creativity side come from?
Well, I'm very fortunate. My real father is a professional choreographer, and he was a dancer and worked for the airlines. And I grew up backstage of the Chrysler Theater in Windsor and watching every show that you could imagine, all 7 of them from a stool. So he was a great weekend father. I saw him all the time, and he was a huge influence on me. And then I had this rock and roll stepfather, and they got along really well. So it was interesting to me to have, you know, people say, I didn't go the theater route, but yet if you ever watch my show like Song Machine Today, I love the theater. We're doing my co-singer Barbara Ann, we're doing a Grease song, and we've got the leather jackets and the
yeah, I've seen you do that.
And we're right. And when I did Elvis, I put the hair. To me, it's more of a Queen kind of performance. Like so I really did mix those two worlds of a rock and roll dad, stepfather drummer, and watching all that theater all my life. So to me, it's rock and roll theater.
Do you care whether people are laughing at you or laughing with you?
Do we care anymore?
Right?
You know what? My life turned out I'm so lucky. Like I said, married 34 years, 5 grandchildren, handled my career nicely, and had those wonderful hobbies along the side. Now, if you asked me at 26, I was going to be, we got back from doing global TV at lunchtime and the whole city watching it and in the paper all the time. I was going to be a country star,
That's right? Yeah,
in my head. You're 25 years old.
And why not?
And
why not you?
There's nobody that didn't stand in front of a mirror at some age.
Yeah.
Especially us 80s
with the
kids,
hairbrush, and
said, we're going to be a rock star.
Yeah.
Everybody wants it. And you know what? I was just, here's the key. With those theater people, my dad had hundreds of friends. So when I would go down to Windsor for the weekend, see a show, I was surrounded by theater people, and they're the most encouraging people in the world. They told me, you couldn't have convinced me that I wasn't going to be great, because I heard it every weekend, you're the prince, and you're going to be incredible. There was so much encouragement in my life, and that's the lesson to your little ones.
Thing, right?
Encourage, and I believed it to the point where you couldn't make me.
Why not believe it?
Why not?
And isn't that what makes people great? Is that they do believe that they can do that, right?
Yeah, and my wife will often say to me, I'm not actually a marketer. I love to take a piece of coal, which could be you and I starting a band.
Yep.
Squeeze it so hard that it turns into a diamond.
Yeah.
And that's all I do. I don't want to touch something unless I can. And
you're an all-in guy.
I've had to learn balance. I mean, be perfectly honest with you, I would let my jobs when I was younger suffer. We were playing 5 nights a week at the Dusty Rose and getting up and going to work, and I had 3 young girls.
Right.
So I wasn't very good at balance always, Then I tried to, I'm going to own the Campbell Street Station, lead singer with his own bar.
Yeah.
Bad mistake.
Yeah.
And of course, there's no bars left, right? Had the one in Wallace.
But you don't like.
I'm not scared to try.
That's what I mean. You're an all-in guy, and it's okay to fail, right?
Oh.
In fact, don't you have to?
You know what? I walk around, and you probably get this. I know you get this, is that they say, you're so successful. And even you, Dave, you're sitting here today, everything you touch. Do you know how many things I touched that failed?
Oh.
If you don't go bankrupt 100%. Twice in your life, you're not going to make your first million. Your growth comes from the failures, and the failures just always, a real fighter gets encouraged by failures.
Yeah.
I was that close that time,
Yeah.
And it's funny, everything at our age, it's in perspective now. I have a band, we used to play 30, 40 times a year. I play 6 times a year, and I used to hate band practice. Band practice was work, eh?
Right.
And then you wanted to go play. Now I love going in the basement with the big band and playing music for 3 hours on a Wednesday night. That's therapy.
Right.
So you put things into perspective.
You're right. It is perspective.
Moderation.
The failures is true what leads us to our success, right? And you only get. I'm still going. You're still going.
We're just getting good now.
Right? I'm still figuring it out, but
and you feel 30. We've heard this from.
I don't worry about failure. I wonder what you think of this failure. I wonder how many great ideas are out there with people, but never come to life because they're afraid. Well, they're afraid to fail.
Yeah.
Why are we afraid to fail?
Well,
are we taught that?
I think so. I think that really comes from the parenting. I'm blessed to have 3 very successful daughters, and my wife is great at it, and it's just always encouragement. So I think if you're never prepare them for the failure, there's certain parenting styles that say, don't do that, you're going to look silly. Don't go down there.
I think it's done out of sincere love.
It's out of love,
but I do think it's an error.
Yeah. I am not judging anybody's parenting, but I wasn't parented that way, and most people don't know this. I was a bad 13, 14, 15, everybody's a rebel. I was actually kicked out of my home at 14 years old. Now picture that today.
Yeah.
And there was no drugs like today. It wasn't like it is today.
No, there's a drug for every letter of the alphabet today.
So it wasn't as dangerous, but I stayed in places down the South End, which I wouldn't take you today. I was renting apartments with a buddy who also got kicked out. We'll make it.
Right.
But I never went home. I came home at 19, 4 or 5 years later, and bought their house.
Yeah.
Because they had to move, so it was now I look back at that, that was pretty good. And I stayed in the tree streets. I'm a guy of roots. When I got married, I got married, bought their house at 19. I've been married since 19. And I stayed there for 30 more years. I stayed in the same house as my parents' house. So the room I used to get grounded to, I grounded my kids to.
Right.
But I do love the roots. I've always been a Sarnia guy.
Are you a tough guy?
No, I'm not tough.
Are you a sentimental guy?
Sentimental.
Yeah. And when I say tough, I don't mean mean.
Yeah.
I mean emotionally. Are you tough?
My experiences have made me emotionally tough because, and let's be honest, when you stick your neck out there as a singer, I was in radio for a long time, as you know.
Anything in the public.
Anything in the public, even being a salesperson.
Yep.
For everyone that loves you, there's 10 that hate you.
Yep.
It's just how it goes. And I get it. and that used to trouble me.
Yeah.
Now I measure how well I'm doing in a project by how many people I'm upsetting.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
And you just don't care. We've all deal with peer pressure. I think that's what goes. You'd probably agree that it goes in our late 40s.
There's
50s.
always a lion in the grass ready to pounce when you do something wrong.
Yeah. And we're in a vicious world today.
Would you say a lot of times there's people that are trying to push you up? Sometimes they're the same ones that try to bring you back down when you're really hitting that success peak.
If you're like me, we probably have over 2,000 friends on Facebook from different projects, and we collect all these people to share our message with.
Yeah, right.
And I probably got 1,500 of them that are only keep me just to see what I'm doing.
Right. Yeah, right.
Or I'll hit the like button. Damn it, he's doing something again.
Yeah.
And you got to know that. I think you just have to know that going into. Don't expect. We're in a massively different industry than even in the '90s when I did the band. If I made the newspaper, the Sarnia Observer, there was 55,000 people. I couldn't walk through that mall saying, "Hey, I heard you open up for Randy Bachman."
Yeah.
I mean, we couldn't get down the mall.
Yeah.
Now that's how much it's changed.
I prefer we rely so much on the like button and the love button.
Yeah.
I measure more by the share button.
Shares,
because I find
shares and real sincere comments.
That's right. A share button means you think enough of me that I want to share that positive thing with some friends.
I think it was always happening. So I'm sure that when 40,000 of those people were reading Sean's in the paper again with the band. Yeah. But I just didn't hear about it. Yeah. You didn't see, and
nobody could comment on it unless they ran into you in person.
That's right. That's right. And it's the same, but it's different, right? Yeah. We're marketing. I think social media has been very detrimental in a lot of areas, but it's been great in others. For my projects, your project, that's how we.
Well, I've always said, Sean, if you Facebook gets a bad name because we say, that Facebook's there. It's not Facebook that's the problem. No. It's how we use it that's the problem. It's the people using it.
It's a lot of brave people behind it.
We always gossiped. We just did it at a coffee shop or the bar. Now you do it on social media, and everybody's a journalist because they can make a comment. Yeah. And you can't, face to face is disappeared.
I think we didn't know about what was going on.
Well,
I think that we know too much. It sounds silly, but in our 50s, we see somebody every day we grew up with or have an acquaintance with that's passed away. Mm-hmm. I used to happen to me all the time, which I didn't like. I'd go say, "Hey, have you seen Mike?" He said, "Geez, he died 3 years ago."
Right, no.
Well, that doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah. And I worry. I'll tell you, Facebook. When they remind you, like it's Sean's birthday. If I haven't seen you in a while, I go to the page first to make sure you're not dead. Sure. Well, because I've done that.
And
where
I bet I have
"Happy
10
birthday,"
dead ones on there,
right? And I get a message that says, he passed. Like, oh no, I didn't know. And
transparent. Our lives are transparent. And everybody knows me. I'm just as guilty. If I'm on the islands, you're going to see every damn picture of it. Yeah. And I think even we all had to grow with it. I didn't go on social media till like 2010. Yeah. And I think it's been a great tool for things like the band or DJing or for any other project, Crime-Stoppers. But it's a balance. I find myself slipping a bit away from it. Not to go view it, but to post and to share too much of my life because you become very transparent.
It's a big part of my life because it's a big part of what I do, right? But there's times.
But there's your show, and then there's David.
That's right. Right. There's the product, and then
it's. I think people do enjoy if they enjoy your show. They love to see you and your son out in your motorcycles and your wife. I think that it does give a little bit more transparency to a character that you do want to be interested in, and the research is great.
The real, there's. I try to keep it real too, not just a character.
You're very good at what you do.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that.
Like I watch The Sting and what you do, and I'm glad that we got to develop our skills. Because if I sit back when you first started the show, and like if somebody says to me, you should be an anchor on TV, honestly, because you've got you're good to watch. You've got that thing.
I appreciate
that. And I think to your point, people don't exercise that skill, or they just never. Yeah. I remember a young friend of mine who was the funniest guy ever, but he should have been a comedian. Yeah. And I really mean that he should have been a comedian, and he just never did it. And we get into our 50s. Well, he says, "Well, I'm too old for that."
No way, do it.
Well, I agree.
We do.
I agree.
What's Sean Robbins has a lot of strengths. What would you say is one of your weaknesses?
One of my weaknesses. Sometimes, although I can go full bore into stuff, I wish I finished things and stayed with them. I bought, I think in my music studio in the basement, there's another new acoustic guitar that's down there, because I've said 12 times I'm going to learn how to play the guitar, and I probably bought 12. Pickers Alley loves me because I was a trade.
Tony sees you coming. Hey, how you doing today?
And I got another beautiful one down there, and over the pandemic I got her going, and I was learning all my chords. Well, I haven't touched it. Yeah. Sometimes I have to learn how to say no. I guess saying no. I've got 3. I won't say needy daughters, but I have 3 daughters that need my attention.
They're daughters.
I've got grandchildren that need my attention. I have a wife that needs my attention, and organizations that I'm managing that need my attention. So is to learning how to say no. I'm much better at it today.
Very good, very good. Let's talk about involvement. Like you're involved with Crime-Stoppers. What's your role there?
This is my 3rd term as a president. Yeah. So
what made you decide to get involved there?
Actually, it's kind of it's like being a Mason. You kind of got to get asked. So somebody, when I started with Cogeco, one of the very senior people on Crime-Stoppers and with Cogeco was there. He said, you'd be a good fit for this. And I thought about it, and it was my record was clean, and I'd been a good boy all my life. So I thought, I was on the Canada Day Committee for 10 years. I've always had a portion of my life that was volunteer work. I'm a Mason. I was a kinsman once, and I enjoy that part of it. But when you get the full family going in your 20s and 30s, it gets a little tougher.
Gets busy.
So it was time that we were empty nesters, and I said, hey, I think I'm ready to give back to the community. And part of it was this drug epidemic was hitting my daughter's friends. I can't tell you, we have the odd 50-year-old that's passing away from a heart attack or cancer. My daughters have lost more people than I've ever lost in my life, each one of them individually. Wow. And it's all from, opiates and from methamphetamines and these killer drugs. And I thought, you know what? And I was in the middle of a young lady had just passed away that was a girl. These kids slept over at my house. Right. You've known them since they're this big, and now they're gone. And they were like 25 or 22. So I joined Crime-Stoppers to try to do something about drugs. The real difference in the 80s, and there was lots of pot and things of that nature.
Pot and hash.
But it was entertainment. So we would get high, for lack of a better word, for entertainment.
The same way we drink a beer.
It was never addiction. So when they even say there's a drug, even the word drugs from 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s isn't like saying the word drugs today. No, cocaine, heroin, opiates, these are addictive, family wrecking, life killing, kill you stuff. So I joined Crime-Stoppers, and it was actually, Crime-Stoppers has been around since '85, so it goes through a lot of iterations of different boards, because people come and go. And it was at a particularly lower moment when I joined, and I got to use my, they had an old 95 Windstar with holes in it. Well, I'm from the car business. I run over to the, Automax and say, hey, can we get a van? We'll put, do the marketing. So I just extended my passion for it, and we grew it, and now I'm going to be...
It's really become more noticeable in the community, I'll have to say. Because I do remember, even back in my Marstonville karaoke days, I got getting thrown in jail for the bail in jail.
Well, and things changed. The jail and bail was huge, right? But telephones in the mall, its world changed.
Totally.
So we had to revamp it.
But we see a lot of it now, I guess is what I'm saying. The marketing's worked with the, from the van to the... I remember in the pandemic, doing a card, like a ride through the city, which quite honestly, I'll be honest, inspired me to do the motorcycle thing, the Ride of Respect.
Sure.
And now we do that every year. And to the golf tournaments that you put on.
Well, we were doing things like selling cheese and cookies and crackers, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but we raised all the money for Crime-Stoppers. So we really had to find. I did a.
And it's important for people to know that Crime-Stoppers doesn't get handed. They might get a teeny weeny little bit of the police budget,
some from
maybe.
the Sarnia Police, but the rest
is you're a non-profit organization.
It's a non-profit,
and you have to raise that money to.
It used to be funded by the OPP, and they pulled out.
Right.
With their funding, they had some budgetary problems.
Yeah.
So we pay 2 coordinators a salary, which are usually retired police people that take the calls. And we need $100,000 a year. So they were doing stuff that was we were sitting doing chuck-a-pucks. Yeah. And all those things are great programs, but not when you're volunteers, especially with an older volunteer or something. Yep. So I did a study. I had a study done of man hours and woman hours versus what we brought in, and now we have big donors and sponsors. That 4 or 5 that give us $5,000 a year. Companies, great local companies. Car lots that give us A1 security. The marketing needed to go out there, so they do our tip of the week on the radio,
yep.
Right? And they pay for that every year. They're great. So it needed an ambassador. It just needed an ambassador.
Right.
Any product just needs an ambassador. And I think you're this guy. You and I could sit down. And please don't phone either of us on this. But
I'm afraid to hear what he's going to say.
We know a guy for everything. By the time I got to about 45 for the last 10 years.
Yeah, we're connectors.
So if you say I need my roof done, I need my tires fixed, I need my lawn done, we know the guy.
And you're right.
Or girl.
I enjoy that because I enjoy seeing people get connected who didn't know each other before. Yeah. And now, it's kind of like helping your kid get a job. It's like, hey, Shawnee, well, listen, my kid can okay, Dave, I'll do it. I said, but by the way, don't be afraid to fire him. You can still do that. But now it's up to those people to continue that relationship and build those relationships. And, I like to be able to smile and go, I'm just really glad I introduced those people to make it work.
You're hitting on something is what's important to me today. Skip ahead is legacy. And I always thought it would be what I did.
Yeah.
Here's Sean Robbins, Dancing with the Stars 2020 champion. Here's Global TV. Here's 3 Bay Fest. That's my legacy. Yeah. It's actually changed. My attitude's changed because my little grandkids, taller as me, not hard to do, I remember going to a job and my stepfather's name, Ronnie Hinton, I'd apply and if his name came out, it helped me.
Yeah.
If they're...
Did that ever bother you? No, I wish I could do it on my own.
Now with my kids, Ashley's a real estate agent, and everybody, I know your dad. I know your dad.
Yeah.
I know your dad. Hopefully it's a good reason.
My son goes through that.
How do you do that? But that's now my legacy, that I can see my grandson going somewhere, and I know I've conducted my life correctly.
Right.
That it will, if it opens one door for my granddaughter, one door to that.
It doesn't make them any less of a person to walk through that door because they knew the name. But now they've got to produce.
They got to do their job.
They got to produce, right?
Yeah. But if I can help them in any way, so my legacy is, funny enough, the grandchildren change everything. It really did change a lot for me. So. Well, it'll come.
Maybe.
It'll come. Got a good-looking son.
Well, hey, I don't know.
he'll be good with the girls. But then they get married so much later.
Right.
And now we've changed where, the band, I was telling you about the band thing, it's sort of, I didn't know where I fit into that. I mean, I wear the shirts and ties and do the, everything from Motown to Bruno Mars. I don't have a label of I'm a rock band or I'm this. I really wanted a corporate band because most of my friends are corporate in the events I do. And
probably pays better.
Well, it pays better, but you're dividing it by 6. It doesn't really, but it's a passion. And I think at the end of the day, I wasn't sure where I fit. Once you're 50 years old, your hair falls out, a little rounder in the middle. Well, I don't wear the leather pants anymore. And who you and I dress in a shirt and tie most days.
I don't know if I'd want to see you try that.
Well, in the 90s, it wasn't so bad.
The guy in the little coat.
Yeah, I used to do the little coats, right? But I mean, I think that's where you have to fit in where it's a little bit age appropriate. And I'm lucky with music; I've been able to move that age appropriate. So I wear a shirt and tie during the day with my job. Well, it fits into me at night, and I'm not trying to be. I sometimes look at the Steve Tylers of the world that are still wearing the same outfits, and the Vince Neils that shouldn't be. And it doesn't seem age appropriate, So
changes.
It changes.
Yeah.
And so now I'm a DJ, So then I start wedding DJing on the side. I tried a few out, And all that entertainment guy, I build it like a band with the light show, because that's all I know.
Yeah.
One thing I never do is study anybody else. Here's a great tip.
You never look and go, I can do that, but I need to do it better.
If I see a great idea, I might borrow it, but I always set out, I think if you're worried about your competition, if you're focused on them, you can't possibly be focusing on your mission.
That's true.
So I'm very imaginative, so I'll get an idea of what I want, and I just go after it. So I didn't study DJs, and now I'm booked 23 and 24. I don't have a weekend off. The wife started decorating. Our side hustle she marries you, she decorates it, and I DJ it, and we're having a riot. We do it every week. And
I was talking to you before you were here running around doing stuff, and she said you two really work well together.
We do, and she loves weddings, and it's a big change for me, because when you're playing a song as a DJ, you've been a DJ forever. Yep. When you're playing a song, you don't really do a whole lot. There's not like when you're singing it, you're it's sweating totally and you're So I mean, to me, I would go through 3 or 4 shirts a night. Now I don't even break a sweat, right? But it's that. There must be something I'm doing right, because I keep getting well promoted, and people are following.
It's all word of mouth too, right?
It's all word of mouth, and we're about ready 5 or 6 years.
That was the best thing. I think I ever advertised once, and it was for a charity, and I was just giving them my money. Really,
yeah, it's all word of mouth now. Facebook's been handy. Keep a Facebook page, and people reach out, a way to communicate with you. Yeah. And
even DJing's changed to, like, you're on computer, but I mean now we have access to so much with the internet.
We don't bring CDs and records. Now it's all digital files.
I remember thinking CDs was great because they were smaller. I went digital near the end of when I was finishing up.
With my stepfather, he'd say, "Go find that on an album." Remember all the milk crates with the albums, So, and you know what? I have fun with it, and I've always been good at. I've learned in 26 years. I haven't always been good, but what the next song should be in a band or in a DJ to keep that dance floor full. I never played to the guys.
No, well, and as a DJ, you got to read the room too, and you got to look around and see.
Get the ladies dancing,
especially at a wedding. You've got 19 to 90 there, right? So you got to please, you got to have Randy Travis in there still.
And that's where the band comes in handy. And my band is 19 to 90. We do a lot of family resorts, right? Yeah. I've got.
But you got to learn how to play all those different types of songs. That's more of a chore.
It is. Well, I thank gosh I just sing them. So.
Right.
And you know what? 7-year-olds at campgrounds and those corporate events still think I'm a rock star. So I can fool the 7-year-old.
Let's talk about the pandemic quick. We got a few minutes left. How was that for you?
For me, it wasn't. I work from home with Kojiko, so I was very lucky to. It didn't affect my career a lot. Gina works for Toronto Dominion, so in her banking world, she was home a little bit. I had the kids home, so I was a parent again, putting kids on school because my daughter was working. So that was interesting. I felt it was. Yeah, I was stressed. I would say that the pandemic stressed me because, the band my band collapsed. Yeah. There was nowhere to play, and if you don't keep yourselves together,
well, you're a really social guy too. That's kind of what I was.
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, I look back at it and wonder if it even happened. Right. And I think we all do that. Like,
we've been out at almost 2 years.
Did that really happen? Right. Like standing in line at Lowe's for 2 hours for a light bulb outside. I often think it was a bad dream, but.
What are you? Sorry, finish what you're saying.
It was hard. I think there was a lot of people that I was very lucky. My career was great. My wife's career was great financially. There's people that it hurt financially in the service industry. I wasn't one of those people, so I'm okay with that.
Yeah. What are you most proud of, Sean?
What am I most proud of?
Come on in. It's okay.
What am I most?
She's trying to tippy toe. It's okay. Make noise.
I'm most proud that I grew up.
Honestly, have you?
That I matured. I think my maturity, when at 25, when I again thought I was going to be some sort of country star, it wasn't there. And I think I take level-headed decisions, and I'm slower in my process. So and my legacy. It's those grandkids and I'm not one of those parents that with my daughter, who's now been incredibly successful at real estate, comes back to me, and my middle daughter who works in the Chemical Valley when they got their education, got their jobs. I want my kids to blow me away.
Yeah.
I want them to live in the big house and dad has to retire in an apartment. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
It's that's what you leave behind.
Yeah.
So
I got to tell you, Sean, sentimental moment coming here, but you are a star. And I think what becoming a rock star back, what we thought it was selling 1 million records and all that sort of stuff and being. But I mean, you're a star. I look up to you. I follow you all the time from afar.
We do
and I
to
think
each
you're
other.
a star,
I think there's a
right?
mutual respect.
And I mean, your family, your daughters, and your grandchildren. You are a star to them, and there's a lot of people in this community that really appreciate what you do.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
And so I think if you were looking for stardom, I think you found it.
I feel like I did. I felt those are the things. So you're right. What you thought. I used to think being the bad boy was attractive. Being a bad boy is not attractive. Being a great husband, a great dad, that's wholesome and that's attractive. But we grow and we age, right?
Well, like you said to me, you think I should be a TV anchor or something. Actually, I'm happy with this. Right?
Well, and you are a TV anchor.
I could sit down and do it, but I'm happy here to talk to people like you. And
well, I look at your program, Dave, and we've known each other since you dreamt up the idea of the great idea.
I know
of the
you
show.
said, "What are you doing?"
But you know what? We're very similar because that same persistence has carried you to. I get a lot. I chair a lot of community events. Or
you get asked to be involved.
How many times will I go? Well, you got to get Dave Burrows.
Yeah,
you're the guy. You're the guy.
Well, okay, I appreciate it.
And it's a small town, and you stayed here. We both stayed here.
I only went away one summer, and she was awesome. And that was 30 years ago.
I did Grand Bend in '87 for a summer. Oh boy.
Yeah. No, I've always thought, and I know you have too. There's so much opportunity here in Sarnia-Lambton, and there's so many great people here.
We don't see its beauty either. Everybody visits here and goes,
even to travel outside of Sarnia, like Jennifer and I are going away tomorrow. We're going to go down to Grand Bend, down to Bayfield. You don't have to go far, right?
No, Lambton County has got some beautiful spots. Lambton, Kent. We're actually in a wonderful. When you see what's going on in the rest of the world, I actually truly believe we.
No kidding.
I saw an article. I'll wrap up with this. That says we live in the safest place in the world to live is the Great Lakes region of North America.
Yeah.
And I believe it.
My friend calls it, I know they call it Ontario's Blue Coast, but the Southwestern Ontario Riviera. Right?
And how many visitors come here and go? We've got
They had no idea.
So many new immigrants to Sarnia, which, by the way, I love, and I think they're fantastic. And they're changing the landscape of Sarnia.
Yep.
We were kind of a beat 'em up. You had to be a little bit of a tough guy when you and I were young, and you had to hold your own, even at skate country or somewhere. And I just feel there's a gentleness moving into Sarnia.
Yeah.
And I like that. It's the next wave. It's not the Italians and Portuguese and English of the 50s, 60s today. It's our friends from the Asian countries, and I love them. Yeah. I think they're great.
Sean, you're awesome.
Thanks,
I love you too, buddy. You're great. And follow him along online. Watch what he's doing. If you want to be around greatness, this is one of the guys to. I mean that. And I'm so grateful that I was able to catch you on a day where normally you'd be getting ready to DJ. I know you got lots to do.
This is like the weekend off,
right?
And she's got me
so
painting wedding decorations.
I'll see you next year.
It's literally.
All right.
Literally.
Thanks for watching, everybody. And I know I always say click the like and the love, but really click the share button so we can share the message of the people that I interview, like this great fellow right here, Sean Robbins. That's all the time I got for you this week. Have a great week and an even better weekend. We'll see you next time on the show.
Don't beat me up too bad.
Bye-bye for now. That's it, buddy.